This is a request video, and this is asking me. This is a video that's on the topic of expanding upon this idea of goals as side effect. So, if my goal is to get a gold medal, right? I can't really control that because getting a gold medal requires participation from other people, and other people need to be worse than me. But then also, they need to maybe have bad luck that day compared to me, and I need to have better luck, and I need to be better prepared. But the thing is, I can't really control all of that. So rather than put my goals into this basket of this external thing that I cannot control, when I focus my goals on the internal states. Okay, so what do gold medalists typically do? They train really hard. What do gold medalists do in general? How do they train? What are they thinking of? And then those are things that we can control, right? Those are things that we can do. So we want to shift our goals from externally driven goals to internally driven. So that was the point of the earlier video that I made as a short. And I have a friend on Discord who asked me, can you expand on this? In particular, um, the concept of having goals feels so draining, and I just want to feel free. And you know what? I completely resonate with that. I also find that sometimes having goals can be pretty suffocating. Constantly working on something, constantly needing to be this person that's better than me today is sometimes draining, and I completely understand that. So now, I happen to have this idea that I am going to be introducing more and more into my videos, but it's this. We can benefit a lot in general by pursuing researchers. And what do I mean by this? When a child is trying to access a cookie jar that's at the top of the cabinet, the child becomes almost infinitely creative. The child can do anything in their power to keep troubleshooting. How do I get closer to the cookie jar? Okay, does this chair help? Does this stool help? Okay, but when I go up, I feel like the chair is shaky. So how do I climb onto this? And then what can I do to make the next platform better and better? So in this case, one could argue that the goal of this child is to arrive at the cookie jar. But it's more like a deep curiosity around how can I get there? And there's a lot of trial and error that's driven by this pursuit of curiosity. I wonder, I want that. Can I get that? Oh, mom and dad says no. But is that true? Mom and dad says no, but is it true that I can't really get it? Okay. Let me verify that and let me try it. And then I will use this chair maybe, and then I'll try that. And I'm not saying a child has the cognitive capacity to think like this, but basically what I'm trying to lead you towards is, instead of thinking about I want to be this, let's work on this. If we have a general curiosity of life, I wonder what happens if I do that. And let me keep in mind as to all the reactions and all the results that happen from this. And then with that, I can use this information that I get from this, right? Okay. So going back to the gold medal example, suppose, the goal-driven idea is, oh, let's get a gold medal, or let's train like a gold medalist. But the pursuing research thinks in terms of like this. If I prepare like this, if I prepare by default, what am I likely to get? Let me experiment by competing like 10 times over the next 3 months. But in order to do that, I need to know how I'm training like by default. So what do I mean by default? Okay, so every training session I do these things, and then I generally tend to train at this intensity. Okay, so now that I know this, and if I compete 10 times, what are my general chances? Okay, so maybe I don't place at all. Maybe I lose 2 times. I lose my bracket every time. Okay, so now I wonder what happens if I change some parts of my training based on the 10 times of competition experience that I've had. And then, okay, so now that I did that, that tends to happen. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so what if I kept this the same and then what if I did this? So there's constant curiosity of what happens if I do this? You're looking at everything in your life not as this, result that comes from this random process that you have very little control over. It's about taking ownership of your life and then thinking that I there's something I can always do to influence something. So I can't guarantee something will happen every time, but in general, I can influence things. And so, what's the extent of that influence and what can happen as a result? When you have that open mindedness and a general curiosity to that open mindedness, then even if you don't think in terms of goals, your life is going to be very rich with experiences, learnings, findings, trials, and errors that will really get you towards where? The direction of your curiosity, right? So when you want to learn a foreign language, right? I find that, yes, could you just work on the language itself? Sure. But what are the people like? The people who speak this language, what are they like? I find that that worked really well for my French. Of course, my French isn't perfect because I've only been self-studying for about a year, right? But when I started wondering about how do the French people think? And when I experienced their culture, oh, this is really different from America and Korea. And I think the language really reflects this. And the more curious I became about the French experience in general, the more I find that it tends to improve my French. Of course, why wouldn't it, right? So, that's the case for foreign language. And what if you want to learn a musical instrument, right? So, musical instrument. Perhaps you want to be you want to play guitar better, right? But then you find that in general, practicing scales and chords and like it's really boring and it hurts your hands, right? So, what can we be curious about that? In terms of playing guitar, like for example, if you like Lana Del Rey, how did Lana Del Rey get to playing like that? Let me try and replicate the style of Lana Del Rey because let me look at her hands and then let me see what she's doing with her chord and then how can I emulate that? And how does Lana do it so naturally, but why can't I not play like that yet? And let me try this approach and then oh, it turns out, oh, and then the more you do this, the more you embody what it's like to play as Lana Del Rey, right? And then using this, you study Lana Del Rey's influence. And then you're like, oh, Lana Del Rey was really influenced by this kind of music. Okay, so let me try playing that kind of music. And then you're like, wow, oh, okay. So the more I play the guitar in that kind of a tone, the richer my musical vocabulary also becomes, right? And so in general, yes. Could you achieve the same thing by, trying to play like I'm gonna play like Lana Del Rey, like 10, I'm gonna practice 10 hours a day? Sure. I think there is a time and place for that if you want to, approach development like that. But in general, even that kind of a practice routine is generally improved upon by having a very engaged curiosity. So this is what I call pursuing research. Because research usually ends at some point, right? Just default research. After you got the gold medal, you may be done. After you play like Lana Del Rey, maybe you're maybe done. After you speak French, you may be done. But pursuing research doesn't end there. So now that I learned how to speak French, what can I do with this, right? And then you build upon the resources that you have stacked up. And then you turn life into this constantly pursuing research effort. Because guess what? Life will always give you new things to do. Life will always give you a new day. Life will always give you a new opportunity to explore something that you'd never thought about before. And if that's going to happen anyway, why not take advantage of it? And the richer your life is with people, with knowledge, with experience, and with stories, the more resourceful as a person you become, the more trust that you develop for yourself, the happier you become in general, and you start being that kind of an influence to the people around you. And when you do that, the world becomes generally a better place where less people suffer. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that.